Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Everyone's wondering, will the U.S. get involved if Iran does not surrender? But Trump holds firm that Iran must not have a nuclear weapon, and we have more on how the CCP used TikTok to interfere in the 2020 election. Okay, let's get into it. Yesterday, we covered the news about FBI Director Kash Patel revealing an intelligence report about alarming allegations that are related to the 2020 election. This report included allegations of Chinese Communist Party interference in the 2020 election. The report raised concerns that China had mass-produced fake U.S. driver's licenses in order to hijack the 2020 election with fake mail-in ballots for then-candidate Joe Biden. And today, we will dig into more details. The report was sent to U.S. intelligence agencies on August 24, 2020, as an uncorroborated advisory. But then, as we also explained yesterday, the report suddenly was recalled with not much explanation other than the Bureau wanted to re-interview the source. Based on the memo, the recall notice specifically asked spy agencies to erase or delete the original intelligence report. The recall notice stated, "This report was recalled in order to re-interview the source. Recipients should destroy all copies of the original report and remove the original report from all computer holdings." Officials said that the recall kept the FBI and other agencies from fully investigating the allegations that Beijing was trying to meddle in the U.S. election to the benefit of Joe Biden. However, corroborating evidence came in from a fellow law enforcement agency also. They said U.S. Customs Border and Protection had captured 19,888 of the fake driver's licenses that were on their way to battleground states in the Midwest in late July 2020. The fake driver's licenses were mostly from Hong Kong and China. The title of the FBI intelligence report clearly stated the potential nature of the alleged plot. The subject line was Chinese government production and export of fraudulent U.S. driver's licenses to Chinese sympathizers in the United States in order to create tens of thousands of fraudulent mail-in votes for U.S. presidential candidate Joe Biden in late August 2020. The intelligence report was not deemed corroborated, making clear it was raw intelligence and that the informant was relatively new and has been corroborated for less than 1 year. The report also noted that the information was indirect from a subsource. The report said, warning, this is an information report, not finally evaluated intelligence. It also flagged one aspect of the informant's allegation, which indicated that the information about the fake driver's licenses was gleaned from the TikTok accounts of Americans. The report said China had collected private U.S. user data from millions of TikTok accounts to include name, ID, and address, which would allow the Chinese government to use real U.S. persons' information to create the fraudulent driver's licenses. But the report also noted that it was unspecified how China attained U.S. address data from the application, but they used the true ID number and true address of U.S. citizens to make them difficult to detect. After Patel released the report on Monday, Chuck Grassley urged Patel on Tuesday to investigate the nature of the memo more intensely. Grassley urged Patel to determine who ordered the recall and why. In response, Patel ensured that he is fully investigating the circumstances surrounding the intelligence report and its recall. The conflict between Israel and the Islamic Republic of Iran entered day 6 today as both sides intensified their strikes. The Israeli military spokesperson announced that more than 10 additional targets in the capital of Iran had been targeted. These targets were related to the production of Iran's military weapons and their security institutions. Israel targeted engines, navigation systems, and missile assembly facilities. They also targeted a centrifuge production site. One of the targets was a building that is near the Red Crescent Peace Building, but there was no damage to the facility directly. Israel Katz, the Israeli Minister of Defense, also stated that Israeli Air Force fighter jets destroyed the internal security headquarters of the Islamic Republic. The Jerusalem Post also reported details about how Israel killed some of Iran's top commanders. According to the report, one of the newly appointed commanders, along with dozens of Iranian Revolutionary Guard commanders, left their headquarters after Israel's attack on strategic military centers in Tehran, and apparently, to ensure their safety, Iran's commanders relocated to a hideout in the mountains surrounding the capital. However, the Israeli military had anticipated their movement, and once the commanders arrived at the hideout, they were all engulfed in an attack. In response today, the Islamic Republic of Iran also launched several waves of missiles toward Israel, and for the first time it used first-generation hypersonic missiles. The Times of Israel reported that flight tracking sites showed 3 Iranian aircraft, including the presidential plane headed to Oman. According to the Times of Israel, analysts estimate that the flights most likely were Iranian negotiators who were headed for ceasefire talks. However, the Islamic Republic of Iran denied the report, so it's unclear who was on those planes. On the other hand, President Trump stated that the Islamic Republic offered to come to the White House for negotiations with the U.S. government, but President Trump responded that it was too late for talks. President Trump told reporters, "I only want one thing, that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons." Yesterday, he also asked for the unconditional surrender of the Iranian regime. But the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic stated that he was not giving in to U.S. demands, and in response, President Trump said, "Good luck."
Unconditional surrender. Two very simple words. A very simple, unconditional surrender. That means I've had it. Okay, I've had it. I give up. No more. Then we go blow up all the all the nuclear stuff that's all over the place there. No, they had bad intentions. For 40 years they've been saying death to America, death to Israel, death to anybody else that they didn't like. They were bullies. They were schoolyard bullies. And now they're not bullies anymore, but we'll see what happens. Look, nothing's finished until it's finished. War is very complex. A lot of bad things can happen. A lot of turns are made. So I don't know. I wouldn't say that we won anything yet. I would say that we sure as hell made a lot of progress. And we'll see. The next week is going to be very big, maybe less than a week, maybe less. But is there anybody here that said it would be okay to have a hostile, very, zealots really, but to have a hostile country have a nuclear weapon that could destroy 25 miles, but much more than that, could destroy other nations just by the breeze blowing the dust? That dust blows to other nations and they get decimated. This is just not a threat you can have.
About whether you are moving closer, or you believe the U.S. is moving closer to striking Iranian nuclear facilities. Where's your mindset on that?
I can't say that, right? You don't seriously think I'm going to answer that question? Will you strike the Iranian nuclear component? And what time exactly, sir? Sir, would you strike it? Would you please inform us so we can be there and watch? I mean, you don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this, that Iran's got a lot of trouble, and they want to negotiate. And I said, why didn't you negotiate with me before? All this death and destruction. Why didn't you negotiate? I said to the people, why didn't you negotiate with me 2 weeks ago? You could have done fine. You would have had a country. It's very sad to watch this. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It's so, everyone thought it was going to be the reverse. I didn't think so. And I was telling them, you gotta do something. You gotta negotiate. And at the end, last minute, they said, no, we're not going to do that, and they got hit. Remember 60 days, and then came the 60. 61 is going to become a very famous number. That was one hell of a hit. That first hit, that was one hell of a hit. Not sustainable, to be honest. That's where it ended. It ended on the first night. Yes.
Is it too late, though? Do you think it's too late to now?
Really, nothing's too late.
Today, President Trump also said at an Oval Office event that he has ideas as to what to do. But he has not made a final decision when it comes to Iran. President Trump said, I like to make the final decision 1 second before it's due. With war, it can go from one extreme to the other. So things can change anytime, and this makes some people wonder what the U.S. will do next. Will the U.S. join the offensive against Iran? In a heated exchange of words between Senator Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson, Ted Cruz said, We are carrying out military strikes today, to which Tucker clarified, you said Israel was. And Cruz concluded, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them and we are supporting them. But Tucker had to reiterate the facts. He explained what the National Security Council said about this.
The U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not
at all.
bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting
This is
Israel.
high stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay.
President Trump was later asked about the exchange between Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson. Let's listen to what President Trump had to say.
Have you seen the Tucker Carlson, Senator Ted Cruz interview? It seems like this issue on whether or not the United States should strike is kind of dividing a lot of your supporters.
My supporters don't want to see Iran have a nuclear weapon. Tucker's a nice guy. He called and apologized the other day because he thought he said things that were a little bit too strong, and I appreciated that. And Ted Cruz is a nice guy. I mean, he's been with me for a long time. I'd say once the race was over, he's been with me ever since, right? But very simple. If they think that it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon, then they should oppose me, but nobody thinks it's okay. People that don't want, I don't want to fight either. I'm not looking to fight. But if it's a choice between fighting and them having a nuclear weapon, you have to do what you have to do. Maybe we won't have to fight. Don't forget, we haven't been fighting.
Then President Trump said that when he spoke with Tucker directly, he asked Tucker if he was okay if Iran had nuclear weapons.
And it's interesting because I did ask Tucker, I said, well, are you okay with nuclear weapons being in the hands of Iran? And he sort of didn't like that. He didn't want to really, but he sort of didn't like that. And I said, well, if it's okay with you, then you and I do have a difference. But it's really not okay with him. Therefore, you may have to fight, and maybe it'll end, very quickly. But there's no way that you can allow, whether you have to fight or not, you can allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon because the entire world will blow up. I'm not going to let that happen.
Israel hasn't attacked Iran's energy export hubs so far, but the global oil market has already begun to fluctuate dramatically. Some analysts warn that China may be the first to suffer if Iranian oil exports are disrupted. Iran exports around 1.7 million barrels of crude a day. It is less than 2% of global demand, but more than 90% of that is sold to China. The U.S. reimposed sanctions on Iran's oil exports in late 2018, so most countries are afraid to touch Iranian oil. And Iran has had to sell it on the black market at a discount for a long time. Iran is also relying on the Black Fleet to avoid tracking and sanctions. If Iran's oil exports are disrupted, Chinese refineries will have to spend more money to switch to non-sanctioned crude, and the cost will go up. So far, the war hasn't reached Iran's oil-producing regions, but the market is already reacting. The price of Brent crude has risen nearly 6% since June 13th, when Israeli airstrikes hit Iran and the two sides exchanged missile fire. In response to the price hike, the Chinese Communist Party officials have been frantically stockpiling oil for 3 consecutive months. Reuters estimated that China added 1.4 million barrels a day to its stockpile in May alone. In addition to oil dependence, the structure of the Sino-Iranian trade has also been questioned as unbalanced. Since the sanctioned oil is paid for in renminbi rather than in dollars, Iran has few choices about where to spend its crude earnings except on Chinese goods, which reinforces Iran's dependency on China. But now, Iran's oil export lines could be cut off at any time. If Israel wanted to cut off Iran's oil money, it could attack Karg Island in the Persian Gulf. This island is where most of Iran's oil tankers sail. An attack on the island would paralyze most of Iran's oil exports. But by doing so, Iran risks alienating the White House, since President Trump does not want higher gasoline prices in the United States. But OPEC Plus countries have more than 4 million barrels of idle capacity left, which which could make up 80% of the shortfall in 6 months. So global markets might be able to stabilize, but China is inevitably going to take a hit. Cheng Chin Mo, an associate professor at the Department of Foreign Affairs at Tam Kang University in Taiwan, said that China has a lot of investment in Iran, and Iran owes China a lot of money. Half of Iran's oil is exported to China to pay off debts, and half is sold at very low prices. So Iran has become a country that the CCP can control in the Middle East. The CCP has long controlled Iran, mainly through bartering. Iran exported energy to the CCP, and the CCP sold some weapons and equipment to strengthen the diplomatic partnership between China and Iran. This cooperation seemed unbreakable, but the situation has now changed due to the outbreak of war. On March 27, 2021, the CCP and Iran signed a comprehensive cooperation plan. The program would last 25 years, if the regimes can last that long. According to the agreement, the two sides will cooperate in finance, infrastructure, construction, healthcare, defense, and other areas. The Chinese Communist Party would invest $400 billion in Iran over 25 years and set up a free trade zone with Iran. Iran, in turn, would provide China with a steady supply of oil at relatively low prices and allow China to further participate in Iranian banking and telecommunication projects. But with the outbreak of this Israel-Iran war, it is likely that there will be a change in the Iranian regime. And therefore, the investments that the CCP has made in Iran over the years are likely to go down the drain. Since the beginning of the conflict, the Chinese Communist Party has expressed its condemnation of Israel and sided with Iran. Now, President Trump has explicitly demanded Iran's unconditional surrender, which is embarrassing for Beijing. But China is not in a position to intervene or change the situation. The Assad regime in Syria, which the CCP has long supported in the Middle East, has collapsed, and the regime in Iran is now in danger. Iran used to support Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthi to run the Middle East with the support of the CCP. But now the situation has changed, and it will be very difficult for the CCP to develop in the Middle East in the future. Xi Jinping was visiting Kazakhstan when the conflict between Israel and Iran was taking place. We said a few days ago that Xi Jinping was under house arrest by the opposition, but now he's on a visit abroad. So are these two pieces of information contradictory? There is no contradiction. The details of Xi Jinping's visit to Kazakhstan reveal that his situation is anything but normal. The most obvious thing is that his wife still did not accompany him on the visit, which is definitely not normal. When Belarusian President Lukashenko visited China a few days ago, Mrs. Xi and Xi Jinping hosted a banquet for Lukashenko. So there's no problem with Mrs. Xi's health. The explanation given by those in the know is that Xi Jinping is indeed controlled by the opposition. However, since Xi has not been formally dismissed from his post, his presence is still needed on many occasions. So in order to ensure that he behaves in public, his wife has become a hostage. Also, on July 2nd last year, Xi Jinping traveled to Kazakhstan. If we compare these two visits, we can see more of the special aspects of this year's trip. First of all, Xi did not make a speech at the airport this time, nor did he publish an op-ed in the Kazakh media before his trip. Given Xi's previous high-profile style, such a low profile is very unusual. The reception in Kazakhstan was not as grand as last year also. The first Deputy Prime Minister, Skyler, who holds real power, did not appear in the welcoming party, nor was there a grand welcoming ceremony and dinner for Xi at the presidential palace. The president of Kazakhstan, Tokayev, spoke about the relations between the two countries. He said that the bilateral relations have entered a new golden age. It is illogical to lower the standards of reception of the highest leader of the Chinese Communist Party in such a way. The official CCP media coverage of Xi's visit also departed from the usual practice. In the footage that was broadcast by the CCTV, they cut to the Kazakh president Tokayev just after he exits the door, skipping his walk down the aisle. This is also a departure from previous CCTV broadcasts of Xi's foreign visits. Also, Russian President Putin, who has wished Xi a happy birthday many times, actually forgot this year that Xi's birthday was June 15th, but the day before June 14th, he congratulated President Trump on his birthday. So Putin must know something. Xi Jinping used to wave to the welcoming crowds with the windows rolled down, but this time he was not present at all. We could only see the welcoming crowds waving flags. The camera was deliberately avoiding the inside of the vehicle's window. Zhang Weiping, a former media figure for the CCP, claimed to have watched many of the official video clips of the CCP in Kazakhstan. He believes that the CCTV's deletion of the footage may have been due to Xi Jinping's poor physical condition. He claimed that the footage showed Xi's head shaking for a few seconds, which may confirm rumors that Xi suffers from Parkinson's disease. In recent years, there have been persistent rumors about Xi Jinping's health crisis. Since the beginning of 2019, there have been constant rumors about Xi Jinping's health being a red light. Xi Jinping has been rumored to be suffering from pancreatic cancer and brain aneurysm and stroke in the past 5 years, but none of them have been officially confirmed. Xi Jinping suffered a heart attack on the night of May 25th to 26th, and then he suffered 2 more consecutive episodes in the first week of June. This is according to an internal briefing by Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, which was submitted to the Kremlin on June 9th. It's also been said that Xi Jinping lost his power because of health problems. Others say the opposite, that Xi lost his health because his policies were resisted from top to bottom, from left to right, causing him to be in a constant state of rage. We all know that the reformists are very unhappy with Xi Jinping because he's gone back to the old way during the Maoist era of closing down the country. This path has long been proved to be unworkable. But why are Mao supporters, the leftists, also unhappy? We'll explain this in detail tomorrow. On Tuesday, Amazon CEO Andy Jassy made it clear that the rollout of generative AI will shrink the company's workforce over the next few years. He said in a memo to employees, "We will need fewer people doing some of the jobs that we are doing today and more people doing other types of jobs." It's hard to know exactly where this nets out over time, but in the next few years, we expect that this will reduce our total corporate workforce. Jassy encouraged staff to learn how to use AI tools and experiment and to figure out how to get more done with scrappier teams. The directive comes as Amazon has laid off more than 27,000 employees since 2022 and made several cuts this year. This follows media reports that Amazon has frozen its hiring budget for its retail business this year, and Jassy isn't the only executive to say that AI advances could lead to layoffs. Similar layoff-related discussions are moving from hypothetical speculation to a common topic in reality. Alison Kirkby, the CEO of British telecom giant BT, has warned that AI could bring further job cuts. In 2023, the company announced plans to cut up to 55,000 jobs by 2030. In April, Shopify CEO Toby Lutke said that employees who want to apply for an increase in staff or more resources must first prove that they can't get what they want done using AI. In late May, Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei suggested that AI could eliminate half of the entry-level white-collar jobs, and the CEO for Klarna said earlier this month that he expects the impact of AI on white-collar jobs to be significant enough to trigger a recession. So is this why Elon Musk is saying that we need a high basic monthly income? And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember to leave a comment below the video. This is really helping us to be seen all around the world. The more people who watch Front Page, the more freedom-loving people the world will have. And please hit the like button and hit the notification bell after subscribing. And please share this video with your friends and family because everybody deserves to know the truth.